Some of us have experienced a really wet beginning to the summer, lots of rain, lots of wind, and today it's quite windy. And in parts of the country, I was told this morning that winds could reach 50 miles an hour in the south of the country. And all this makes difficulties for when we're planting and sowing, and when we're sowing seeds and putting plants out early in the summer, which are very vulnerable to the weather and sometimes die. Now, I know some of us who live in nicer areas where it's a little bit warmer, particularly the guys at Father's house who've got the raised beds at the back of the church, which is a bit of a sunspot, really, and doesn't experience high winds, have had really good growth. Diana Morris, in her new raised bed, her runner beans are running away, actually. It's going to be a good crop, and Margaret Buckley's had an amazing crop of strawberries. But for me, up in the mountains, it's really difficult because it's windy. We've had heavy rain for over a month, and it's been really hard for me to grow things, even in the greenhouse, where it's not getting any sun. Anyway, about a month ago, I put out a lot of runner beans and Belotti beans, French beans, and various other plants, courgettes and things. And we had a deluge of rain for about 8 or 9 days, including high winds. And some of those plants died. But I wasn't going to give up, and I wanted to plant more, so I put in a second planting of seeds, and they've come up. And on Wednesday, I went up to my orchard and raised beds, and I started planting the new plants that had come out. And I was looking at my diary for last year, my planting diary, to find that actually I was already picking courgettes this time last year. And the runner beans were nearly to the top of the canes. And so I asked the Lord, I said, why, Lord, do I need to be making a second sowing? Why do I need to do this? This land is blessed. It always has been. And I felt the Lord saying that sometimes we have to do a second sowing because we're planting and sowing in winter and in the rainy season. And it occurred to me that fitted with what I've been teaching and what I've been studying with the Song of Solomon. Where we're at this place in chapter 2, verse 11, where we hear the voice of the beloved saying, the winter is over and the rains are past and gone. And I felt the Lord saying that we are in a spiritual winter in Europe. And sometimes you have to plant again and again to ensure that you're going to have a harvest. And this is what I felt him saying. And I said, but Lord, you don't plant twice. And he said, yes, I do. I planted Israel to give a message, to speak about who I am. And then I brought into being the bride, who is sowing a second time. The same message that I am God, there's only one God, and these are the things that I want mankind to do, and that includes the feasts and the Sabbath and all those things, and the message being that there is only salvation through the God of Israel, through his Son Yeshua, through his sacrifice, and that message needs to be sown and sown again. And then I looked at the parable of the sower in Matthew 13:18-23, and it says, hear then the parable of the sower. This is Yeshua speaking. He says, when anybody hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. This is what was sown on the path. As for what was sown on the rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. And when trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the lure of the wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and in another 30. And there are groups of people who hear the word, and sometimes they don't understand it, they don't follow it through, and they're snatched away by the evil one who takes away their souls, basically. And but Yeshua doesn't say that we shouldn't sow because of this. He actually encourages to sow, and sow from our hearts into the hearts of others. And that's what we need to do here. When anyone hears the word of God, it's not our burden to ensure that it soaks deep into their heart and into their soul. But if it doesn't, and they go in different directions, that doesn't mean that we stop sowing that word. We still need to sow the word. And I think one of the things that we do very well here at Father's House is to sow the word as teachers into various aspects of people's faith walk. For instance, the tribes teaching, the teachers in the tribes, the children's work, how they sow into the children. And the Margaret Buckley's discipleship course, Jill Walker sowing in the words from the prophets, the Hidden Treasures course, Becky doing the Women's Day on Sunday, the Ladies' Day, sowing in word continually. Some people will fall away, there is no doubt, and some people find the message that we have at Father's House too hard, and they're not able to take it in. And of course, there are always those who would rather stay in the world and do the things in the world. But actually, what we're trying to teach is that God is a God who, when he sows, when he gives of his word, it's a word of love, and it's a word which intends that the soul of man will live in eternity with him forever. That's his intention. So I think it's up to us to keep sowing the word, and sometimes it becomes repetitive. Sometimes it's a word that maybe you've heard before, but for others it's a new word. And I just want to thank God that I'm part of a congregation where the teaching of the Word of God goes out. Salvation is taught every Saturday here. Some people say to me, well, you've spoken again about Sabbath, or you've spoken again about the Song of Solomon, but always we include, whoever's speaking, the salvation message. But salvation is a sowing of seed that needs to go deep into the souls of man so that they don't continue sinning, but continue walking in a path directly towards the God of Israel, the God of creation, in order that they can find eternity with him who harvests souls. So I want us to remember that we all have a duty to sow seed, whoever it is, whether we sow the seed of the gospel in a congregation, to children, in children's work, whether we do it through our writing or through social media, or if we just do it with our husbands and our children and wives. So happy sowing. And if you've sowed for the second time or the third time, it doesn't matter. Just keep sowing, because that sowing will produce a harvest. And I'm convinced now, looking at the plants that I've put out now it's getting warmer and we're having sunshine, that those plants will flourish, and we will have a harvest. And I think the point of the message is never give up sowing. So Shabbat Shalom, Mike Fryer.